Hello, good morning or afternoon or evening. I'm so happy to be with you today. I'm feeling really good this morning. Today was one of those days where I had the energy to get up and meditate and practice some yoga. I'm feeling very like myself and it's a really nice feeling. So I'm very happy to be with you today. Thanks for coming. As always, this is a conversation between me and you, the listener. I am your host, Rebecca. I would love nothing more than for this conversation to continue in other spaces like Instagram or Patreon or who knows. And this is a safe space on the internet for reflection, for personal evolution, and compassionate community. I am providing reflections, not answers. I really want this to be an honest space for us to grow together. And the specific episode today, which I'm extremely excited about because I had this episode idea years ago. And I just feel like this is something I could really use working through. I'm excited to brainstorm about this, to think about it, to jump off ideas with each other on this. But essentially, this episode is anxiety and intuition. I want to give a brief disclaimer, though, that anxiety is a broad term. And I'm more so talking about the experience of anxiety versus an anxiety disorder, which I do actually have an anxiety disorder that I receive um talk therapy and other things for. But in this specific episode, I want to talk about when feelings arise in your body about a certain person, a certain idea, a certain experience, and trying to figure out, is that my anxiety or is that my intuition? And originally, I was going to call this episode anxiety versus intuition, but I think we'll see the more that this overlaps. I think we'll see the more that this conversation continues that the two actually tend to overlap a little bit more than I was giving credit. But in preparing for this episode, I spoke with many people about their thoughts. I spoke with my therapist, I spoke with my mom, I spoke with my friends. I did a lot of journaling and looked some stuff up. I've got some definitions for you guys. I really wanted to get a broad kind of experience of this because I think it is so different for everyone. So I'm kind of just trying to create conversation around this and then we can grow through it together. So let's start with anxiety and let's start with what that means. So, anxiety is intense, excessive, and persistent worry or fear about everyday situations. It's an over analysis. That is the definition per Google when I Googled it. And same with intuition. Intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It is immediate and instinctive. So that is how the web defines it, and that resonates. But I want to talk about a conversation I had with my mom and asking her about this. And I was saying, I'm going to be recording an episode on anxiety and intuition. I would love to know, how does that show up for you? I would consider my mom quite intuitive. She's very tapped in with herself and with her kiddos. My mom is like, if I'm about to get up to no good, my mom somehow calls me and is like, "Girl, what are you doing?" I just know you're going to get up to no good. You need to be safe. You need to, her mom tuition is so good. And I think it's just because she's a very intuitive person. So it leaks through the things that she cares about, which she really cares about her kids. But yeah, so I asked my mom, what does intuition and anxiety look like for you? And she was saying intuition is more of a need for survival. It's a guttural reaction because we were talking about how people always say your gut, intuition is in your gut and listen to your gut. And I feel like I experience some of the most fear in my life in my belly. So I'm like, where in my gut? Which part of my gut? To the right or to the left? I just can't tell. And I mean, there have been times where I've been performing in an audition and my stomach is so turned over, it's so riled up. I think I might sneeze. If I do, I'll just edit it out, but I feel it inching in there. Is it coming? It's been a 2 sneeze day today. I've been sneezing twice every time I sneeze. But anyway, I have been in auditions where I have literally felt such an overwhelming feeling in my stomach, and it's not it feels like anxiety also sits there too. So I have a hard time when people say it's guttural, because if it's guttural for you, then it is that for you. And I'm not here to invalidate your experience, but I'm trying to zoom in and kind of dig in a little bit more, where in your body and how in your body. If it's not a difference of where in your body, then it's a difference of how in your body. We'll talk more about that. But anyway, I was talking to my mom and she was saying that it's the guttural reaction. Intuition is yours, which was so interesting because I think I have always thought that intuition was like this divine thing, like it was like my higher self or like God or the universe or something bestowing intuition upon me. It wasn't like it was arising out of me. And I kind of always like took it as that. Like I'm being guided or something else is like putting this for me. It's not something deep within me. But my mom was saying, no, like intuition is yours. And, she talked about how intuition is pervasive and expansive and that it feels full. But she talked about how anxiety comes from an irrational fear of the unknown. You don't have to stand and fight. And the anxiety I want to give about that is anxiety. Did I say anxiety I want to give about that? I'm on one today. Whew, I'm up. Anyway, so the story I want to tell you, my mom gave me an example. She was saying that one time she was a teenager and she was coming home from a friend's house. Her dad was very strict. My mom grew up in England, and that's irrelevant. I don't know why I said that, but she is British. And her dad is very strict. He was very strict. And he had a specific curfew for her. And if she was even a minute past that curfew, there would be, consequences and she would be disciplined. So she was saying, she was really pushing the time. She was on her way home from her friends. Normally, she would take this little, like, under the bridge kind of shortcut to get home. It was dark outside, and she had just said as she approached the bridge, under the bridge where she was going to use to shortcut to get home, she just thought about how, like, something didn't feel right. Like, in her body and in her mind and in her heart, she was like, I should not go under that bridge. Like, alone in the dark, shouldn't do it, even though other times she has. And because sometimes I think about like, is that not just common sense? Like, but like common sense and intuition feel like sometimes they go together. Like just using context clues, like that might not be super smart. But anyway, she was saying, most of the time that she did take that way and it was totally fine. But that night she had such a weird feeling about it. It was like the hairs on the back of her neck were standing up. She had goosebumps and it was like, I shouldn't do this. This is not a good idea. So she walked around on the lit path to get home. She was late coming home and she explained to her dad what happened. And a long story short, she actually didn't end up getting in trouble because he said you exercised your intuition. And I'm glad that you listened to yourself. Fast forward a couple days, a girl was attacked under that bridge. And there was someone lurking under there. Whether there was someone lurking under there that night is something I will never know and my mom will never know. And I'm glad that she will never know. But it's just so interesting. She gave this story because she was talking about how like intuition is like part of our fight or flight experience. Like the part of you that knows, do I fight? Do I flight? Do I freeze? Do I fawn? Like this is also it's similar to our intuition, which I have like thoughts about because I'm like, is fawning intuition? But I guess if you're like I need to get through this experience however I can, to survive. But that's what she was saying is like intuition is survival. It's a human instinct as well as this divine, beautiful thing. Maybe it's a marrying of the two. But that example was so interesting to me because it's like, wow, she really, had she had not listened to her inner thoughts and had she had said, well, I need to get home, like, I have anxiety about my dad being extremely upset at me and being punished. So I need to just get home as quick as I can. But her intuition was able to override that. So speaking about anxiety is a feeling to me, it feels like kind of like quicksand. Like the more that it builds up, it's like building a house on quicksand or like a skyscraper on quicksand. It's like the bigger and higher and taller it gets, the more it caves in on itself. It also reminds me of a tangled web of headphones where you just have all of these like tangled things and anxiety is just like gnarling and winding up on itself. And I feel like the main point there is that anxiety feels like it closes in on itself, but intuition feels like it expands on itself. And some people say that intuition feels steady and anxiety feels persistent, if that resonates with you. But I think above all else, anxiety has a voice that does deserve to be heard. I think everything we experience in our bodies and in our minds and in our hearts and in our being deserves to be heard. And that is a different experience than excusing or just being complacent about something, hands up complacent. Like I I think that that experience of anxiety is telling us something about ourselves and something about our experience that deserves to be understood and accepted. And that is not the same thing as condoning it in a way. So, we're going to talk about feeling it in our body in a second, but anxiety isn't always intuition, but intuition can sometimes cause our anxiety. And I think that's so interesting because again, talking to my mom, she was saying sometimes anxiety and intuition overlap where we feel it in our body, like we said earlier, but also sometimes my intuition makes me anxious because it comes up and it scares me. So I ignore it and then I push it down. And that suppression results in anxiety. That repression results in like a bubbling inside of me that's like, it's basically like you have this pot that has bubbling water in it. And instead of like turning down the heat or something, you like put the lid on top of it. And it's just like, it's this bubbling feeling. And sometimes I will have intuition about something. Like I had this person in my life a long time, a little bit ago, and something was not right. And I could feel in my being that something was not right. I had a lot of opinions from other people that they were not so happy with this person in my life. So it was very hard whenever an authentic feeling would come up from inside about this person that I wanted to listen to. I couldn't because I more so heard the thoughts of other people. And as soon as I heard the thoughts of other people, like in my own head, like knowing what they think of them, it was hard for me to listen to myself. And then I would get anxiety about whatever intuitive parts of me that were coming up and trying to speak, if that makes sense. Like I was having anxiety about the fact that I I was having this intuitive like something wasn't right and it was giving me anxiety because I was like anxiety, the overthinking and overanalysis. I was like, is this just me listening to the thoughts of other people and not myself? Like your ability to think about multiple perspectives at once and multiple possibilities at once is more so about your brain's ability to think about multiple perspectives than it is about those perspectives actually being anchored in something. So that's your brain. Your ability to think about multiple things, multiple outcomes, multiple perspectives is your brain. The part of you that is zoned in on that one thing and it's expansive and it's large and you feel it, that's intuition from what I'm speculating. But I want to talk about, what does it feel like in our body? And also separating our identity from anxiety. But I think I'll start with that. What does it feel like in our body? When we experience anxiety and when we experience intuition, what does that feel like? And I've started to challenge myself, and I want to challenge you that, like, when you are in your day to day moments, when you start to have a feeling about something, it's one of those things. Is it like, is this anxiety or intuition? I want you to just pay attention to how it feels in your body. Like, I want to do like a little case study right now. And I've been like trying to do this with myself too. Anxiety and intuition feels like it sits somewhere in my chest to my abdomen, like it's somewhere in my torso area in the front side body. I feel like it's like maybe below my solar plexus, which is the closing of your rib cage, or maybe it's you know a little bit deeper in the seat of my body. I find that when I have anxiety, it is not just in those areas, but it's like my face is flushed and my shoulders feel tense and my hands maybe are a little tiny bit shaky and my quads, which is so interesting, the top of my thighs get weak and shaky. And I noticed that I carry a lot of stress and tension in my quads, which is so like, what? Why there? But I find that when I'm getting really worked up, I'm squeezing my legs and I'm squeezing them together really tightly. So I find that anxiety is not just in my gut or in my belly or in my chest, but it's like it's kind of stretching its tentacles out to like my face and my shoulders and my hands and my thighs and maybe my feet, and the ground under me feels a little rocky or like a little unstable, like in my body, like the energy of it, if that makes sense. Whereas I feel like intuition, it sits in that torso area I talked about. I feel like I do feel intuition in my heart, or I do feel it in my belly, or like when I'm connected to something intuitively, I do feel like I'm feeling it inside of my body, inside of my torso, and inside of that area, the solar plexus and the heart and stuff. But I also feel like it like rises up and it's in my brain a little bit. And like my brain is feeling like an overwhelming like feeling. Like there's like a sense of blue calm around my head. And I'm just giving these texture or kind of colorful examples because I feel like the more that you describe something, the more it shows your mind that you're paying attention to it, and the more your mind will pay attention to it, and the clearer it will get for you. So, when you experience your anxiety or your intuition, you're sitting in a moment where you're like, which is which one is it? Take a moment, breathe into your body. Where are you feeling it? Don't draw any conclusions just yet. I just want you to like jot that down, either in your notes app or on a piece of paper, or keep it in your mind. But notice that before a certain experience, you were feeling this in your body and where you were feeling it in your body. And then let's see how that experience goes. Let's see how that person goes. Let's see how that thing goes. And depending on how it goes, you can like look back on what you were experiencing and saying, like I was in this moment, before this happened, I was experiencing this a hot sensation on my face, and I was experiencing like a fluttering in my heart, and my tummy felt a little odd, my hands were a little shaky. And now I know afterwards, this is how this experience happened. Was that fear and anxiety, or was that intuition? You know what I'm saying? Like almost like a little case study. I would just love for you to do that and report back to me on like what are you experiencing, because I really think it's different for each and every one of us. And that's what I mean when I say that anxiety and intuition, they overlap in the body, but it's the how that is different. The how we are feeling this and the how it sits with us afterwards is different. I also want to say that intuition gets stronger the more you know your values and the more you know yourself. And our ability to separate our identity from anxiety is so important. Saying, I'm feeling anxiety, I'm experiencing fear, putting words to it rather than I am anxiety and I am fearful. And like, you are not that thing. You are a being experiencing that thing. The intuition is part of your being, almost is what it feels like. You know, I am aware of my surroundings, and I am aware of what is aligned for me, and I am aware of what I feel is in tune with my flow, like, or with my goals or whatever, that feels more connected to a positive sense of intuition, if that makes sense. Also, doing the investigative work is bringing us closer to our intention, and that is growing our intuition. So the fact that we're even thinking about this and talking about this and trying to make sense of it is evidence for our brain that this is something we care about. And like I said, we will start to pay attention to it more. This detective work is bringing us closer to our intention. Before I end, when thinking about how to listen to our internal compass, I want to go back to the foundation, which is what you want, what you value, and what you know about yourself. Even if you can't see what that turns into, just the fact that you're honing in on the foundation of who you are, that will make things so much clearer when we face those moments of, is this anxiety, or am I experiencing intuition? Is my body trying to tell me something, or is my body having a reaction to something? That feels more resonant about what those two are, rather than like one is right and one is wrong. It's more like, what am I experiencing versus what am I reacting to? The intuition feels more like the experience, like the way that your body is experiencing a certain opportunity, person, place, etc. Whereas the anxiety is like, what am I reacting to? Like, how is this provoking a reaction out of me? I don't know. Maybe that's the case. I'm just so interested in like how this shows up for all of us. And like I said, I really think that the more that we know ourselves, the more that we know our values, the easier it will be to tune in to what our bodies and our hearts are trying to tell us. So those are some percolating thoughts on anxiety and intuition that I have. And that beautiful practice, like I said, of before a moment happens, asking yourself, where am I feeling this in my body? Where is this experience happening for me? And kind of taking note of that and then reflecting on it after said thing has happened. I love that idea of like kind of performing that case study. And like, I'm so interested to see what that looks like for you and what instances and where that comes up. So, yeah, that's kind of what my brain has been percolating on, anxiety and intuition. And like I said, the more we dive into this, the clearer it will get. But I'm glad to start this conversation as a jumping off point. And of course, this will continue in other spaces. And I'm so grateful that you have been here with me today. This has been so fun to dive into this. A lot of the perspectives and notes and stuff that I brought to this were, like I said, from my mom, from my friends, from my therapist, from the internet, from myself. And that is just a beautiful opportunity to share that with you guys. And once once again, and as always, I want to feel like I'm giving you guys enough, and I'm just so grateful that you are showing up with me and that you are caring to dive into your inner understanding. Intuition and anxiety feels like inner understanding, being able to tell which is which and being able to sit with both of them, being able to experience versus identify with these things feels like the right way to move forward with this. And I try not to use right and wrong, but it feels like a resonant way to move forward with this. So thank you so much for being with me today. I have missed you. For you, this has been like 1 week, but for me, it's been a little bit since I've recorded an episode. I pre-record a lot, and I've been kind of struggling with some things personally, which maybe I'll talk about in a later episode. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to feel confident, and I'm happy to feel connected to the message that I'm hoping to spread, which is a greater sense of understanding with ourselves and others, and to make space for the constant unraveling and beautiful evolution that we experience on this planet. And I'm so glad to be here with you doing it. So I hope you have a absolutely fantastic, gorgeous, magical, supreme day or week. And I am thinking about you, and I'm wishing you well. And I'm truly hoping for your divine expansion and glorious, glorious life. So thank you. Bye.